Welcome to our lightning talk, the Open Trifecta, a winning combination of pedagogy, licensing, and ePortfolios. I'm Melanie Lenahan, and I'm a professor of biology at Raritan Valley Community College.
And I'm Megan Dempsey. I'm the instructional services librarian.
Hello, my name is Carrie Rafanello-Bazar, and I am the career counselor and educator.
So this work addresses the barrier to success in first-year STEM courses in community colleges. Open pedagogy practices can benefit students, especially first-generation college students. We wanted to have students take ownership of their open educational journey. To get a sense of our demographics at Raritan Valley Community College, we are a Hispanic serving institution. This semester in my general biology class, 30% of my students are first gen and 40% work more than 20 hours a week. And this is a typical distribution of my first year courses. So why use open pedagogy? I was moved to adopt open pedagogy teaching practices due to the inequities in higher education that were revealed during the COVID-19 pandemic. And I'd like to use this illustration of the Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein as an analogy for providing equity and justice in our classrooms. Ultimately, by fixing those structures, by providing the tree to be upright, can provide justice in our classrooms so that all students have the opportunities for learning. So for my class in general biology, I've adopted students creating open educational resources that I call open pedagogy projects. Some of the examples of my student work include podcasts and blog posts that are shown in the image on the right. And with the students' explicit permission, these learning artifacts can be shared with students in the class and beyond the classroom. The 8 facets of open pedagogy that are shown in the wheel on the left are examples of how my students' projects align with those facets of open pedagogy. For example, innovation and creativity, sharing ideas and resources, learner-generated learning artifacts, such as open educational resources, and later we'll talk about reflective practice and peer review. So the overall goal of the unit assessment or open pedagogy projects is to give students a choice in what they learn in class and help them to construct their understanding of a course topic. The initial start of the project is for students to identify a goal of their project, for example, to teach someone a biological concept or to explore a career or educational goal. The next step is for them to choose the format of their project. Initially, I had students create blog posts, podcasts, or infographics. More recently, I have students create what I call an un-essay or virtually anything to demonstrate their learning. The last thing is for students to explain how that project aligns to learning objectives for the unit. And on the bottom of this slide, you can see the scaffolding that I use in my classroom for these projects. So students start by choosing the goal, the format, and the alignment to the learning objectives. We have a library instruction that you'll hear about later. And we also have our career counselor, Carrie Bazar, who will be speaking later, help students to create a Creative Commons license for their work and also to upload it to an ePortfolio. Some of the benefits of doing this type of work with my students is that it creates a community where all voices are valued. It provides opportunities for autonomy and agency. It fosters collaboration both within and outside the learning space. It promotes a culture of peer review and encourages reflective practice.
So as the librarian that works with Melanie's classes, the first time I meet with her students, I give them my captivating world of copyright presentation. So they come to the library and are introduced to a brief history of why and how copyright exists in its traditional form and the protections that copyright provides to content creators. I then describe the growing popularity of Creative Commons licenses as a way for content creators to share their work more widely and to give built-in permissions for others to use what they've created while still retaining ownership over their own intellectual property. We then play a little guessing game with the symbols that are associated with a Creative Commons license to help them understand what permissions are established through the licenses. I then show them all the possible combinations of the elements of the license and talk about the varying degrees of openness that can exist. I like to include examples of where students may have seen the licenses before and not realized it. And TED Talks are a great example of this. It gets the students thinking about why someone might want a more restrictive license on content. Because, for example, taking a clip out of context for a TED Talk could drastically alter the intent of the talk. And this ties in nicely with the research the students will be doing on scientific topics as they undertake their open pedagogy assignments. During their research, they will encounter a lot of copyrighted content and some openly licensed research with varying levels of permission. We also discuss open access and its relationship to Creative Commons licensing, as well as the value of open science. The COVID pandemic actually really enhanced students' ability to understand this concept or to grasp this idea of why open science is really profoundly important. It's often a very eye-opening concept for students. I think there are several wins to this licensing session within the context of the class and the students' broader educational experiences. First of all, it encourages the students to seek out openly licensed creative elements. I think the students pay more attention to licensing of the content once they're aware of it, especially the multimedia that they might want to use to enhance their project. Students recognize that open sharing of knowledge is valuable and that they can participate in that process. And it helps students to think about openly licensing their own products and sharing them with an audience beyond their instructor. This actually ties in with the last part of our trifecta, which is ePortfolios that Carrie is going to talk about.
We introduced ePortfolios as a well-researched, proven, inclusive, and interactive teaching and learning strategy, especially when paired with undergraduate research. ePortfolios link multimodal evidence of learning and preparation, empower student narratives, and support equitable career readiness for all students. ePortfolio pedagogy is grounded in engaging students in knowledge construction with a social context, allowing students to own their learning process, and motivating students to create evidence for future career advancement. As the career counselor, I introduce students to the ePortfolio platform, provide an overview on the benefits, get students set up, and demonstrate the process of adding, reflecting, and sharing their curricular and co-curricular artifacts. Students are guided through a sample ePortfolio from a former student, as you see here, and we use guided prompts to support their reflective practice. Additionally, I teach students about the NACE career readiness competencies and how their unit assessment can be linked to skills employers value. Because reflection and meaning making is at the center of ePortfolio pedagogy, you are empowering students not to reflect just on your course, but also on who they are becoming as a scholar, a citizen of the world, and an aspiring professional. Equally valuable is an improved understanding of what students are taking away from your course. ePortfolios can help you better understand who your students are, what they value, and what they are trying to accomplish. Knowing these things helps you make course content even more relevant to them. As you consider how to incorporate ePortfolio pedagogy into your course or program, we recommend beginning with some framing questions. Consider the kind of learning experience you're trying to design for your students. What do you want students to take away from your course? What role does an ePortfolio play in helping support the goals of your course? As far as next steps, this year, our next steps will be informed by my faculty research grant, where we be using ePortfolios for assessment. We will be exploring how ePortfolio pedagogy impacts student awareness of and self-efficacy around professional identity construction and career readiness. The very process of developing an ePortfolio not only documents a student's academic, personal, and professional development, but more importantly, it prompts students to adopt future-oriented thinking and consideration of next steps. Incorporating the ePortfolio into the general biology courses as part of our trifecta also encourage students to openly share their research beyond these courses to other students on the ePortfolio platform, as well as to future transfer institutions and employers.